Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Index Podcast. It's been a while. I'm joined here by my co-host, Joe Mayo. What's up?
What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be going through a plethora of topics, including COVID, the vaccine, getting into a little debate about the sports scene going on right now.
No.
Should be a good time.
Yeah, should be fairly entertaining. Um, so a lot has happened since our last episode. Our last episode happened just after the riots at the Capitol building and the insurrection. So politically, we've changed presidents since our last podcast episode, and frankly, I approaching this with no bias. I think both sides can agree that first couple of months of the Biden administration have been a little bit disappointing. I'd say.
I can completely agree with that. The vaccine rollout was already kind of scheduled to happen, but
Mm.
it's good. It's good that we're to a good point on that right now. I feel
Yeah.
like on the immigration side of things, though, there was a lot of promises that are definitely not being kept. It's kind of sad to see an administration say how the last administration didn't keep promises and then they're doing the same thing.
Right. It's like, I mean, a lot of people say that they saw it coming, that like Biden's a classic politician. He's not going to deliver on like his promises. He's all talk and whatnot. But man, I really hope better for this administration, and I hope that we're very early into it. It very well could change. But I mean, as of right
It is,
now,
yeah,
it
it's
seems
very
like
early.
he's not really delivering where he wanted to. But then again, that could just be like his prioritization of the vaccine right now, which I definitely
Very
understand.
true.
But yeah, I would say for Republicans, for obvious reasons, his administration has started off on a bad foot with them. But with the Democrats who actually elected him, I'd say we're all in agreement right now.
I completely agree. It's hopefully it'll turn around a little bit. But I feel like things just are not what they were promised to be.
Right. Yeah, and I mean we're very early on. We got 4 years left in this thing. We got a lot of time to turn it around, but yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. Wishful thinking would be my words for it. Um, yeah, so obviously we've got the vaccine rollout that's going on right now. We've got I believe it was he wants every adult American to be vaccinated by like a certain date in May, right? Isn't that it?
Yeah, I think so. It's either that or earlier. But
It might be April, but
but I know that in Wisconsin, all 16 plus year olds are not eligible. So if you're listening to this and you are a student at West, go get vaccinated, do your part,
unless you're a
help
freshman and you
out.
can't.
Yeah, of course, unless you're a freshman or some of you sophomores out there. Um, but if you are eligible, go get the vaccine. Do your part, help end this thing.
Trust the process.
Exactly.
They're not microchips. Joe, have you gotten your vaccine yet?
So I have my second dose tomorrow,
Ooh, all right.
which I guess when you upload it, it'll either be tomorrow or today. But
Yeah, I'll probably upload it tonight, so yeah, tomorrow. But what type of vaccine did you get?
I got the Pfizer.
Ah, all right. Oh yeah, that's right. You're younger than me, so you can't get anything other than a Pfizer, right?
What did you get?
I got the Pfizer, but
Wait, when's
I
your birthday?
believe the Pfizer's the only one that's 16 to 18, and the rest are 18 plus, right?
Yeah, it's true. Moderna's 18 plus. Johnson and Johnson, which just got put on a pause, is 18 plus.
Johnson got put on a pause.
It did. Apparently, it was causing blood clotting issues in a couple people.
Oof, oof. My both my parents got Johnson and Johnson.
And it's out of a pretty large sample size. There are a ton of people were affected, but obviously, you want to make sure that going forward, no one's going to get negatively impacted by the vaccine as serious as that.
Right, and then there's a whole publicity issue. People will be more reluctant to get the vaccine if anything like that happens. But
Oh, of course, yeah.
and I mean, this is the first time I'm learning about Johnson and Johnson being on a pause, but like I feel like that could be proving the point of the some of the people who don't necessarily want to be vaccinated yet, who are like they're putting forth arguments like, it's too early. They're basically testing it on us, and it's like, I mean, I understand the logic behind it, but I just like I think everyone should just be doing
I
their
do
part to
too,
get out
but
of this.
I think if you get the flu shot, you should not be worried about this.
Right. They
Also,
had to
this
test
is,
the smallpox
yeah.
shot at one point. That's what I've been telling myself. Every vaccine's
And
had
I
a
mean,
testing
yeah.
phase.
And if you look at it, this vaccine's also like 40% more protective. Whereas I think the flu one's only about 50 to 55% effective against actually combating the flu.
Oh,
Whereas when you get one of these, it's a lot higher. It's like 90% after your second one.
right. Yeah, I've gotten my first one. I got the Pfizer as well. I believe my second one's scheduled for like April 30th. Pretty far down the
Ooh.
line, yeah.
Yeah. Did you just get your first dose then?
Yeah, I got my first dose last week.
All right.
Um, so have you heard about the how it's coronavirus is intensifying in like Michigan right now?
Is it really?
Yeah.
Why do they know the reason for that? I haven't heard about that yet.
Well, I haven't read anything on like the reasoning, but I know that it's like it's getting really condensed and stuff in Michigan, and they're like considering literally shutting the entire state down for a little bit
Really?
because not only is like coronavirus like making a resurgence, it's the dangerous UK kind, like the new
Oh yeah, that
strand.
and that in the I think there was one in I think it was South Africa. There was a new one where it could break through the Pfizer vaccine.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, I just know that like it's another strand and it's in Michigan right now and like they're making serious considerations of just shutting the state down, but I'm pretty sure the governor of Michigan is still a Republican, so I don't know how effective that will be. But
And I do looking at it, I feel like we really should have been in lockdown for longer than we actually were.
mhm.
I feel like we got out of it so fast and then cases just started skyrocketing again. I mean, we were like just thinking about it, we definitely could have had this more under control than we have had under control,
Right.
even before vaccine rollouts, which have obviously helped. It's a good thing. But I feel like if we all spent more time at home, less going out in the start of all this when we got school canceled for the rest of last year, instead of opening back up like obviously like Wisconsin did and a lot of other states did. Um, I feel like it's just something you think about, but obviously there's people who say my freedom and
Right.
cry about not being able to go outside. So I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I know that at the beginning of this whole pandemic thing, which I feel like we talk about every podcast, but I feel like at the start of it, like,
It's a very trending topic.
right. I know my family personally, we took it like extraordinarily seriously, but like only for the first couple of weeks. Like, so for the first couple of weeks, we were like only going out for groceries, not leaving
Oh
the
yeah, well,
house, anything like
I think
that.
that's how most people were honestly for the first like couple weeks.
But the problem is that there was a bunch of people who were like not taking it seriously at that point, and like where we could have only suffered those weeks, it was all for naught because like a specific group of people just chose to ignore those regulations, and people chose to go to spring break in Florida and worsen their problem there. Governors started opening up their beaches for no reason when it was on the rise. We like
And
really when when you
absolutely
reflect on the American response to this, it's like
terrible.
it's almost entirely our fault that we're still pulling through this right now.
No, it's sad honestly. It's extremely sad that it could have been so much better than it is right now, but
Yeah,
we'll just have to we'll have to fight obviously. It's going to be a rough road even with the vaccines, but hopefully, obviously, with my grade, everyone's going to college next year.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll be able to go in person, but it's gonna be it's honestly gonna be kind of a toss up at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that one. It's not looking great right now, and like with these strains developing in Michigan, and you know, like you say, being able to break through the Pfizer vaccine, like it just seems like it's getting worse and worse.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I feel like there could have been a lot more done to prevent the spread, and I feel like especially a lot of local businesses, not specifically, but just not enforcing mask rules. That definitely did not help.
Yeah,
Local businesses and just people in general just not really caring. And there's an extent where obviously now it's if you're vaccinated, like you have a little more freedom. But before and like that springtime, I feel like it's really hard to look at all these like local businesses or people who traveled and just say this could have been prevented.
right. And like what you were talking about with the local businesses enforcing the mask stuff, like I know that there were local businesses who just like flat out did not require any masks. Like they're just like, oh, we'll wear them, but you don't have to. And then like there were like even the bigger corporate companies like Walmart or something like that. They literally like had no power in stopping people from not wearing masks. And I think that
Mhm.
like if we can't enforce it and there's people who like are like, oh, don't tread on me, I'll do what I want, like I feel like we should have like in a time of crisis there's a point where you have to like prioritize wearing cloth over your face over like hundreds of thousands of American lives.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obvious that the masks do something. People who say they don't just they don't know what they're talking about, or you're wearing it wrong. I mean, wear your
Right.
mask right, it'll do something. It'll help. And it's honestly just like it's a respect thing. If I walk into somewhere and it says masks are mandatory, I'm wearing a mask and you're not, well, that's gonna make me think you don't respect my health, you don't respect the health of my family, you don't care about the health of anyone else around you. It's really sad to see a country where, freedom and equality is supposed to be a huge cornerstone, yet I I can wear my mask, but you don't have to.
Right.
You don't think it's a responsibility. It's not. It's honestly kind of shameful being an American and that just being a problem.
Right. And I think that it's important to note the hypocrisy within that like the argument behind not wearing a mask at this point. Because like I'm not trying to like politically profile here, but the people who refuse to wear masks are often the libertarian kind, who are very much not in favor of government intervention in rights and whatnot. And I've had a lot of conversation with people with this kind of mindset, and on other issues, it's been very prominent that they want to promote, freedom of expressing oneself and the freedom of exercising rights given to us until those rights start treading on other people's rights and start to hinder
Yeah.
somebody else's ability to exercise those rights. And I think that it's so hypocritical to just flat out ignore that ideology completely when it comes to wearing a mask and just prioritize yourself, even when you're infringing on the rights of another American person indirectly.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's definitely been a big conversation, and I feel like just wearing a mask could have prevented so many deaths, could have prevented so much time being lost. But now here we are, over a year later. We obviously we missed the year mark on the podcast. We don't have a
Right.
podcast, but it's just really hard to see how just how preventable this would have been if we would have just taken it a little more seriously in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note for our listeners that we're not talking about this from a partisan standpoint or a political bias
Yeah.
standpoint.
See,
This is a scientific argument that we're putting forth right now.
that's another thing is that people are trying to politicize wearing a mask. There will be a column in the index of this issue on the Wisconsin mask mandate, and I feel like that's definitely something that is being brought up. That's just kind of sad that this is being politicized when this isn't
Right.
a political issue. Wearing a mask, wearing a piece of cloth over your face, that's not a political issue.
No, not at all.
It's a human issue. That's helping everyone around you to feel safe, feel protected, and feel respected.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think it's like politicizing this. It's just it's an odd tactic to approach, and it polarizes these already extraordinarily polarized political parties, and it just like we are just becoming so separated at this point because we cannot unite on one thing. We could have chosen to unite against the coronavirus and attack it as a front, but we chose to politicize it, and half of the country decided to attack it, and the other half decided that it wasn't worth their time. And I think that we could have used this in a similar respect as to how a country were to approach a war and united behind that effort as one body, and we would have such a stronger response, and it would have been so much quicker. And I honestly feel like if we just would have united behind that cause, we would not be dealing with the repercussions right now that we are.
See, and it's sad to see that people won't band together to fight against a virus, but they will band together to fight against another country, or it just shows how so many people will choose violence over literally anything else.
Yeah. And I mean it's sad. It's a sad reality that this is the United States of America's response to this issue. A nation that's supposed to be a beacon of hope for other nations, a nation that's supposed to be a beacon of liberty and freedom, and is supposed to prove that the democratic process works, is falling to its knees to an easily preventable crisis.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
On a less depressing note, let's talk about something that isn't the current state of our country. Let's talk about baseball coming back, which also could be twisted into a political argument at this point, unfortunately.
But we're not going to do that.
We aren't going to do that.
Oh, we might in a little bit.
Right. Because, I mean, there are some important distinctions there, but...
So anyway, Hunter is a Cubs fan. I'm obviously a Brewers fan. Go Brewers. The Brewers right now, 6-4 start. Cubs 4-6 start. They play today. Brewers are up. Obviously, after the podcast, we'll know if that stuck or not. But I just want to hear it from a Cubs fan. How does it feel to have an offense that's combined batting average is about that of the average National League pitchers?
I would say that it feels like being only 2 games back from the Brewers right now. That's what I would have to say.
Oh, Hunter, I would have to say to that. We do have a pitcher that can throw over 92 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing.
That's yep.
It is weird to see the Cubs how I feel like just 3-4 years ago they were good, and now they're kind of, and I know it's still early obviously, but I feel like they've been struggling the last year or two to really get any momentum going.
This is what us professional baseball observers call a slump. And like, think about the weapons that the Chicago Cubs have at our expense right now. We've got Anthony Rizzo, we got Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant's a former MVP. We got Wilson Contreras, we got Javi Baez, we got Jason Hayward. We'll be fine. I mean, we'll pick it up. I don't necessarily think we're gonna win the division this year, but I think that our batting average will gradually increase.
So how do you feel about Anthony Rizzo's contract almost being up? You know, he has that deadline coming up, I heard. And there's obviously been some frustration between the two sides. How do you feel about that? Do you think they need to move on from Rizzo or do everything in their power to get him back?
I think we should fork out as much money as Rizzo wants, because when you think about it, the first baseman is a very important position in baseball, perhaps one of the most important. And I mean, he won the Golden Glove last year. He's the best first baseman there is. So, I mean, I don't think Rizzo necessarily wants to walk. So as long as the Cubs, you know, at least put an effort there to try and reach some sort of compromise, I think we'll be fine.
And you know, I do have to say the Brewers, they have a lot of room for growth. Obviously, after last season, that was really hard to watch. Obviously, during the pandemic, you know, you can make as many excuses as you want, but it was really hard to watch Christian Yelich go from an NL MVP to just a random outfielder, just a random scrub out there who wasn't really pulling his weight. But he is. It looks like he is starting to bounce back a little bit this season, and something the Brewers did. We did trade Orlando Arcia, sadly, which that one really struck a chord with me as a lifelong Brewers fan. But
And I mean, you know, obviously there's a rivalry between the Cubs and the Brewers, but I want to see Christian Yelich succeed. You know, it's nice to have MVPs from Wisconsin.
it is. It really is. And you know, I think he'll have his bounce back year. Maybe not obviously MVP, but
Right.
he'll get his way back into the top five in the conversation. I feel like.
I
'Cause
mean,
last year was a tough year. Obviously the Dodgers winning it that made it even worse. But
just wait till they do it again this year.
I cannot. I don't think I've ever met someone who has been a lifelong Dodgers fan that's not from California.
That's a
I
true
got to be
statement.
honest.
Yeah, Dodgers. The Dodgers are just like they're the
They're like the
Lakers
Lakers.
of the MLB.
The Lakers of the MLB, exactly.
Yeah, it's like everyone wants to join them. They're pretty much like they very seldom have bad seasons. Yeah, nobody really likes them, but I mean, some people will root for them.
So now that we're on like the sports route, You're obviously not a Packers fan, but I wanna discuss with you the Packers and the Bears. We'll start with the Packers though, because I'm a little biased.
Okay.
What do you think about the Packers possibly moving on from Aaron Rodgers? It's not something that looks like it's gonna happen, but this year is
Right.
gonna be a big factor if they do or not.
I think that it would probably be the worst decision the Packers front office has ever made if they were to move past Aaron Rodgers. Because, I mean, at this age, he's proven that he is literally like one of the best to ever do it. He's proven this year that he's the most valuable player in the NFL. What
Oh yeah.
more could you want from the man?
And you know, as a Packers fan, seeing all this, like drafting a quarterback when, you know, we could be drafting Kevin King's replacement or a solid third option at wide receiver. It's really just been tough to watch.
And I mean, some could argue that that was LaFleur lighting a fire under Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, if that's what it was, then it worked because I mean, Aaron Rodgers had an amazing season last
Yeah,
year.
and I mean, it lit a fire on Rodgers for sure,
Oh
but
yeah,
it also didn't get us to the Super Bowl, so
but
you look
my
at it that
counter
way.
to that is that it takes more than one person to get to a Super Bowl. And I would argue that it takes more than
Oh yeah.
the skill positions to get to a Super Bowl. And that's really what the Packers have going for them the most right now is the skill positions. Because, I mean, when you look at their defense, you got Jair Alexander, you got Zadarius Smith, you got, Preston Smith, I guess. You've got some, components there that work, but it's just not enough, It's not Super Bowl caliber.
There's just no depth. There's not enough depth.
Yeah.
Like what you see, you look at the Buccaneers and they have a good amount of depth, obviously, on their defense.
Re-signing all 22 starters.
Exactly. It's really hard to watch because I do not like Tom Brady, but anyway,
as you can see from my profile picture, I just want to touch on Tom Brady for a second. I am a Dolphins fan. So Tom Brady obviously used to be a Patriot, used to be in my division, used to have to see him play my Dolphins twice a year. Used to hate the guy. But now that he's moved on, I'm rooting for the guy. I like the Buccaneers. I like rooting for him. I like seeing the guy succeed.
I cannot say the same.
I bought a Tom Brady jersey for the Super Bowl.
So obviously, Dolphins are your number one,
Mhm.
but there's Bears at number 2. What do you think about the Bears signing Andy Dalton and that being their guy right now? Andy Dalton being their quarterback. What do you think about that?
I don't really want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about Andy Dalton, the
Gosh.
third string for the Cowboys last season?
He was a second string. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The only
Who's also
thing
coming off injury. Also coming off injury, by the way.
That's true. The only thing that could ever justify that move for me is if the Bears have something tricky up their sleeve and we trade like a defensive weapon for like a first-round pick and we draft a quarterback. That's the only rationale that I could see the signing of Andy Dalton being an acceptable front office move. And I'm just glad that the season that Bears fans have been dreading for the last 3 years is finally going to happen, because we've been 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. We've been stuck in that middle part without getting a good draft pick, and we haven't done bad. We made the playoffs, so we haven't done bad enough to get our front office fired. But now we're gonna have that 2-14 season.
Exactly.
And we're gonna get a good draft pick, and we're gonna fire Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy.
I'm gonna call it right now. The Bears are gonna go 1-15, and their only win is gonna be against the Detroit Lions.
I'm gonna go 3-13. That's my
sorry,
prediction.
1-16. 1-16.
Oh right, I forgot. 3-14.
Is it 16 games now? Right.
It's 17.
But there's
Yeah.
17 games, 18 weeks.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be a 2-15 type of season.
I'm going 3-14. That's my guess.
I feel like that's a very generous guess of you too.
3 wins is not okay. Let's take a step back.
Obviously, I'm biased.
Let's take a step back and look at the weapons we got here. We got Allen Robinson, who
doesn't want to be there.
He doesn't want to be there. But you know what?
He got franchise tagged, obviously, but does not want to be there.
We've proven that we can put bad quarterbacks behind center, and we can win games with Allen Robinson.
Honestly, you guys took a step down to get Andy Dalton from Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah,
Mitch
I agree.
Trubisky is the worst quarterback when it comes to overthrowing a wide receiver. But somehow the Bears found a way to find someone worse than him.
I tell you what, though. The Bills have the best backup quarterback in the league right now.
They do, honestly.
Yeah, Mitchell Trubisky can pass as a starter, but not a good one. So I think that he's the greatest backup quarterback in the league right now.
And Andy Dalton at one point had a prime AJ Green. So he's shown that even with the weapons, he can be a terrible quarterback, which I hate to say because I was really honestly rooting for him with Cincinnati, but now once he went to the Cowboys, that was all over. I hate the Cowboys. I hate the Bears. I can't validate someone who goes to those two teams.
Well, I don't know. I don't think you're giving Andy Dalton enough success or enough credit for his success, because Andy Dalton when he was like in Cincinnati, they made the playoffs like 3 years in a row. Now, they didn't win a game in the playoffs, but Andy Dalton led a mediocre team to the playoffs multiple times. So I think Andy Dalton's shown that he can be a leader.
They had, I mean, look at it. They had a decent receiving core. They had a decent running back most of the time. Their defense was known to be a lot of heavy hitters, obviously with Perfect. So, I mean, he had the weapons around him. It wasn't a mediocre team, and
I would argue it was a mediocre team because the cornerback depth wasn't there. Their secondary was subpar. Wide receivers were there. Giovanni Bernard was the running back in Cincinnati for most of that time.
He was decent.
But as we know right now, he's not a starter.
I mean, the last time that they made the playoffs was 2015. To put that in perspective, we were in middle school the last time the Bengals made the playoffs.
Dang.
Just to put that into perspective for everyone.
And I think it's important to put into perspective as well that we were all in elementary school last time the Packers won an NFC championship.
That's very fair. I don't have much to say to that except for when was the last time the Dolphins had a genuinely good season?
I would say last year.
Last year does not count.
Last year does count.
It was decent.
10-6.
What were they? 10-6.
Yeah.
That's
10-6.
When was
great.
when was the last time they won their division? Tell me right now the last time they won the division.
Okay, all right. Let's take a step back here and remember the team that was in the Dolphins division for the last 20 years. The greatest dynasty to ever see sports. Kind of hard to win the division.
Yeah, but if you make good roster moves, it's not as hard as you would think.
You're not beating the Patriots. It's not happening.
That's true, but 2008, by the way, was the last time they won their division.
Yeah, I
2008.
know. Which is...
Just making that very clear.
Which is like 2 years after the Patriots went 16-0, so I'll take it.
See, and I understand your point, but I'm not going to validate it because the Dolphins really, this is their fault. I mean,
this is their fault.
If you look at it, they had Ryan Tannehill, who was amazing, and then they wouldn't, after he was coming back from injury, they wouldn't give him the chance.
No, Ryan Tannehill was subpar in Miami.
He was good in Miami until he got injured. They had Jay Ajayi, who was he was a breakout running back. He was a star. They traded him way too early. They should have kept him around.
That's not true. Hold on.
If they could have built up their offensive line.
Joe, as somebody who has analyzed the Miami Dolphins intently.
Completely true.
For these years that you're talking about, Ryan Tannehill was a par to subpar quarterback in Miami.
Not before he was injured. Before he was
injured as well. And when he gets traded to Tennessee, that's when he breaks out. And I still think that the Dolphins made the right move there. Because Ryan Tannehill did not have a future in Miami. And Jay Ajayi, when he got traded to the Eagles, had no success after that.
He had success that season, of course, but when he was in, you could argue that if he kept going like he was in Miami, if he stayed in Miami, same environment, same team, he could have had a successful at least 2-3 more years after that year he got traded.
Well,
if he did get traded,
he was just a huge disappointment after his breakout season. This is a huge disappointment. I had him on fantasy. What? He was my first-round draft pick.
I'm just saying if you kept him in the same environment, the same team, the same guy.
Well, I'm saying
obviously playbooks are going to change. With the Eagles, playbooks changed. He had another guy to compete with, whereas the Dolphins, who else did they have at running back?
Yeah. We still don't really have Myles Gaskin's all right, but
he's decent, and you guys do have an improving defense. I'll give you that, but
yeah, I mean we've got some. I'm not going to say I would argue. I'm going to say some would argue. The best cornerback in the league.
He's top 5.
I would say top 3. I'd say Jair Alexander and Jalen Ramsey have him beat.
I completely agree. It's Jair, Jalen,
and then
they're 1 and 2. They're 1 and 2. Yeah, I could see Howard being 3.
Yeah,
maybe 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's fair. Um. Okay. All right. Well, we're running short of time here. It was enjoyable to talk football at the end. It was less bleak. Well, for a Bears fan, it was more bleak than the state of our country. But it was great having you on. It's great to be back. We're gonna be coming back and doing these quite often. We're gonna be dishing these out as to get a lot out before the school year wraps up. So
Which is coming up. Graduation's coming up for all you seniors listening.
all right.
And we just gotta thank everyone for being here. Thank you if you made it all the way through. And that's a wraps.
All right. See you guys next time.